Clay Duffie has been with the Mount Pleasant Waterworks for over 31 years. Now he's stepping down into retirement. I talked with the general manager of the Mount Pleasant Waterworks for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Clay Duffie, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey, Quintin, glad to be here.
I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, you are the general manager of Mount Pleasant Waterworks. And, when I had this conversation with Linda Page, she's like, you need to do an interview with Clay because he's retiring. And I want to talk to you more about that in just a moment. But I wanted to go back to some developing news from over the summer. And this is coming from the Post and Courier. It says this: results of a wastewater sampling and monitoring study being conducted at DHEC and the Honor School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina show a recent spike in abundance of COVID-19 virus in the influent or raw sewage collected from Mount Pleasant Waterworks. The virus had been undetected in prior samples collected since March of 2020. Let me ask you this, Clay. How much were collected altogether?
Well, we've been doing that for quite a while now. We've been periodically taking samples, working with DHEC and the University of South Carolina, looking at the concentrations of COVID in our wastewater, kind of to give an idea whether or not we could use that as an early predictor of mass outbreaks, that type of thing. And we found that there were some spikes, and then it settled down a little bit, and now it's back up a little bit. So,
and where's that peak right now?
I couldn't tell you the exact number. I hadn't seen the exact data right now, but we certainly know that the COVID concentrations in the wastewater have increased, absolutely.
And this was interesting too. It says the influx of collected from obviously the influent that is of sewage. Where was the spike in the COVID initially in the influent sewage?
Well, it was I think in July we saw a really sharp increase, as we saw a sharp increase in the number of cases in South Carolina. This study that we've been doing is not just Mount Pleasant Waterworks.
Right.
There's several utilities across South Carolina that are working cooperatively in this research endeavor.
And I know the Mount Pleasant Waterworks obviously is one of the 8 wastewater treatment utilities across South Carolina, working with DHEC and Dr. Sean Norman, obviously of the Environmental Health Sciences Department at USC. And they've tracked the presence of COVID-19 virus particles in wastewater samples collected at each site. What type of particles were collected at that site as far as Mount Pleasant Waterworks?
Well, we take a water sample of the wastewater coming into the plant and then send that to be analyzed through the University of South Carolina.
Yes, sir. And I know the doctor said this: my laboratory continues to monitor the abundance of SARS-CoV-2 in sewer sheds across South Carolina, and we have observed a trend of increasing SARS-CoV-2 abundance across most monitored sites since late May, and that's coming from Dr. Norman. How is the sewer shed being monitored right now?
Well, again, we take periodic samples. We don't monitor it continuously. We do what we call a grab sample. We go out there and grab a sample of the wastewater and then send it in for analysis.
Yes, sir. And the doctor goes on to say this: while the virus has been undetected in sewage collected from the Mount Pleasant Waterworks for most of the study, we have observed a sharp increase in abundance since early June, suggesting increased viral abundance in the community. What is that viral abundance right now, Clay?
Well, it's pretty much the same as it was in July. We were seeing the same number of cases statewide, and we see the same correlating spike in the amount of COVID that we're detecting in the wastewater. So, yeah, it's back up.
Yes, sir. And these early provisional data are promising that such sewer shed monitoring of influent waste can provide an additional tool for public health decision makers when dealing with similar virus disease outbreaks. And this is coming from Dr. Mike Marcus of the DHEC department. He's added that it is still early in the long-term study, so the focus remains on continued data collection analysis of the association between viral abundance in wastewater and positive COVID-19 case counts. When you look at that data count and obviously analysis, Clay, what is that now association between the viral abundance and COVID?
Well, you'll see a correlating increase in the amount of COVID that you find in the wastewater, which will tell you that the COVID is spreading throughout your community. So And it's really good. It's not just South Carolina doing this research too. It's been done across the country, and so our wastewater associations are going to be putting together, papers on how research has been going to give health officials some early indication as to where and when you might expect to see spikes in the COVID within a community.
Now, the department appreciates the commendable cooperation of participating utilities and available leading academic expertise that resides in the Arnold School, according to USC. They say that we are pleased that all of us are aligned so very quickly to contribute to the ongoing efforts to protect and enhance public health in our state. How do you enhance public health, Clay, post-COVID, let's say hypothetically?
Well, obviously, COVID may not be the only virus that's out there, and it could be spread throughout our community, just like any other pandemic. So the research that we're doing should be able to tell us whether or not using wastewater as an early indicator is applicable to other types of diseases. So that's how we can improve and protect public health.
And I know Mount Pleasant Waterworks is working hard to continue to protect our community by obviously employing innovative wastewater sampling for the coronavirus. And this is coming from the operations manager, Alan Plum. What is that innovative wastewater sampling right now?
Well, it's the same thing I just talked about.
Okay.
I mean, we're going out there and grabbing samples and sending them off for analysis, and then we study the results and then correlate the results to the amount of COVID that's spread throughout the community.
And how did you all study those results?
Well, we're just providing them the information. The health officials are the ones that are looking at the results and correlating the number of cases to the amount of wastewater.
Yes, sir. And I know that obviously they said this quote, rest assured the wastewater treatment process destroys the virus, but it is an indicator that we need to be more cautious in our daily lives and that the virus is spreading. It's also important to point out that we are discussing wastewater and not drinking water. The two are unrelated, and that's what you said. How long is that wastewater treatment process like?
Well, the good news is that, we see COVID coming into the wastewater treatment plant, and we don't see any COVID going out of the wastewater treatment plant. So the water that is discharged into Charleston Harbor is COVID free. We have disinfecting processes that will kill the COVID, and we haven't detected any COVID in the water that's being discharged from our treatment plant. That's what the wastewater treatment plant is designed to do, is take that sewage that has got not just COVID, but many other diseases and chemicals and bacteria in it, and that wastewater treatment plant cleans it up. That's why we're called clean water.
Yeah, thank God for that. And what else has Mount Pleasant Waterworks discovered that this process can actually destroy?
Well, we've, obviously with the testing on what's coming in and what's going out, we know processes that we're using at the wastewater plant are effective in reducing the COVID in the wastewater.
And you also said this too. We're glad to participate in this leading edge study looking for COVID-19 virus in wastewater. You said this quote too. The hope is that we can develop some concentration correlations as a leading indicator to the health of the community. Any, and this might be another redundant question, but any concentration correlations that you and your team actually have an eye on right now?
No, we're just continuing on with the study, and it's ongoing, so it's not concluded. We're seeing results along the way, but at this point, I would say that there's no out briefing or any kind of paper that's been written on it. As it continues to do the research as this pandemic continues on. So
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And let me turn to standards. WCBD said this past summer, quote, officials with the Mount Pleasant Waterworks said the report confirms the utility met or exceeded all standards set by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and enforced by DHEC in 2019. Let me ask you this. What standards did you all actually meet and exceed?
Well, we have several, the Department of Health and Environmental Control and the U.S. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, they have rules and regulations that we have to comply with, and we have permits that have these conditions that we have to meet. It may be relative to bacteria, water quality, what's in the water, what do we take out of the water. All of those types of permits have some type of measurements on them, and we measure those in accordance with our permits, and we submit that. So it's obvious that we're doing the right thing and meeting all of the public health standards as well as the environmental
And when you obviously with the permits, how long does that take to process?
Oh, we do that every day.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me ask you this too, Clay. What standards do you all hope that you can actually approve on?
Well, we're looking at innovative technologies in reclaiming wastewater, being able to use wastewater as a source water at some point in the future. So we're looking at all types of constituents in the water and the wastewater, and looking at how we can develop technologies that can remove the bad things that are in water or the bad things that are in wastewater, and so that we can continue to clean water, which is our primary mission.
That's right. What are those constituents?
Oh, it's a long list. I mean, you don't have time for me to go through all. But they're obviously they're the things that are related to the safety of the water, the cleanliness of the water, right. So that we know that it is that water is not harmful to people or the environment.
And I know obviously Mount Pleasant water is free of lead and copper when it leaves the treatment plants. What happens before the water leaves the treatment plants?
Well, we treat the water with reverse osmosis, and we add chemicals to reduce the corrosivity of the water. Right. The water coming out of the treatment plant is lead and copper free. What happens in the distribution system, and often in the customer's own lines in the house, copper lines with lead solder, if that water is too aggressive and corrosive, it can leach out the copper and the lead into the water, so that when you turn the faucet on first thing in the morning, you can get a shot of those chemicals, and that's not good.
No.
But that's why we add these anti-corrosion chemicals to our system, to the water, to be sure that that doesn't happen in our customers' tap. And we sample the water coming out of your kitchen sink. Every 3 years, we go through a round of sampling. I think there's 40 or 50 different sampling points around town that we use consistently to monitor the lead and copper in the water coming in the house and out the spigot, just to give another level of protection for our customers.
And I know in keeping with the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act and obviously DHEC regulations, lead and copper tests are conducted annually from June to September. And you all are very pleased to report that all results show concentrations below the EP action levels requires no additional action. And I know that obviously the last sampling was this past summer. What concentrations were obviously concentrated on during this particular summer?
Well, there are limits that are set for the lead and copper, and it's a relatively complicated formula that the regulators use to determine if you meet the standard or not. But it's, I think it's 13 micrograms per liter.
Wow.
And which is a very small amount, obviously. And so I'd have to go back and check the permit to see exactly what that number is. But it is a tiny amount of detectable lead and copper in the water, and we are way under those limits. So we have all faith in our water treatment process, that it is giving the customer good, safe, clean 24/7, 365.
Absolutely. Let me turn to the budget. The operating budget of $45 million for the fiscal year of 2021 operating budget includes an additional $3.9 million per year in debt service. How much of that debt service was in the budget for the last fiscal year?
Not quite that much. We were fortunate. We had to expand the Rifle Range Road wastewater treatment plant, and we sold $111 million in bonds, and so at some point you got to start paying those back, and that hit our debt service requirement in our FY21 budget. So we did see a pretty sharp increase. It was about $9 million before we started having to start pay that money back, and it's around $13 million now. So it's a big pot of money. We have to have that revenue every year, or we would be in default of the bond issues that we issued.
And what were those bond issues?
Well, they're called revenue bonds.
Yes,
and It's basically you go to the market and you sell bonds, just like you do stock, that type of thing. And then within the town's ordinance, we have to pay that back. And we get a very low interest rate, which is a good thing. So the customers don't have to pay too much for borrowing that money. But they're called revenue bonds. And we have to pledge the revenue of Mount Pleasant Waterworks to satisfy the debt service, or you can call it your payments back to the bondholders.
And what revenue did you all pledge this time around?
Well, it's all the revenue of Mount Pleasant Waterworks. It's the customer charges, the volumetric charges, all the revenue goes into a pot, and we have to meet those revenue requirements on an annual basis in order to meet the bond, what we call a coverage test. We have to make a certain amount of money to make sure that we cover those bonds and that debt service we have to pay. That's an absolute law. It's a town ordinance we have to comply with.
And I know in addition to the proposed capital budget, it includes $37 million in capital funding for fiscal years 2020 and 21, providing capital improvements for essential infrastructure. What is that essential infrastructure now?
Well, it's the water pipes in the ground, the water meters, the pumps, the wells, the treatment plant, all of the infrastructure. We have in operation about $1.5 billion worth of assets that Mount Pleasant Waterworks is responsible for. And so to keep those assets in a highly state of operation and efficiency, we reinvest the customer's money into that infrastructure to keep it up. It's just like maintaining your car. If you don't maintain your car, you might get stuck on the side of the road. And so we do the same thing with our customers' revenue, and our capital plan is to make sure that we are renewing and replacing those assets so they stay current with their ability to provide good service, like I said, 24/7, 365.
Yes, sir. Well, let me turn to you. Obviously, you're retiring. I know that you told the American Waterworks Association this quote: during the past quarter of a century, I dedicated my career to the advancement of technology in the water industry and the development of a successful South Carolina State Water Plan. It is my hope that because of these efforts, South Carolina will be better positioned in water research management for our children and generations to come. A quarter century of industry in this industry, Clay. Who is Clay Duffie these days?
Well, I'm general manager of Mount Pleasant Waterworks. I've been general manager for 31 years. Wow. But my father was in the water business. He had the same job I do, and back in my hometown. And I've been messing around with water since I was a teenager. So that's all I've ever done. And it's been a great career. The people in the water business are some of the best people you'll ever meet. And they're dedicated, hardworking, and they really have the heart for giving good customer service. And so it's been a great pleasure to work with those folks all these years. And Mount Pleasant Waterworks has done a pretty good job of advancing technology, as we mentioned. You don't sit still on things. You want to make things better and making them more efficient. And I'd say the employees of Mount Pleasant Waterworks are very innovative, and that's why we can keep our rates down and not charge too much, give customers good value for their service, and make sure the service is there. I mean, you turn on the tap in the morning every day, you to brush your teeth. You want that water to be clean and safe every day. When you flush that toilet, you want to say bye-bye.
Yes, that's exactly right. And how do you define customer service these days?
Well, it's a lot of things. I mean, if somebody has a leak, they have a leak in the yard, we have a service line care program where we'll come fix that for a small fee every month. Once the water passes through the meter, it becomes the customer's responsibility. So, you've got on-site water and sewer lines, and we provide a high level of service for a small fee to do that. If customers have issues with water quality, or if they have a complaint, that's customer service. We're always fixing leaks. I mean, there are leaks every day. There's small leaks. Some of them are big leaks. Sometimes contractors hit our pipes and break them and that kind of thing. And so, we got to be ready. We got to have crews ready, the equipment ready. make those repairs because, again, we got to provide continuous service to about 90,000 people now. Wow, when I started here, it was maybe even a quarter of those people were in Mount Pleasant, and we've seen tremendous growth. It's been a very, very fun ride. Enjoying the growth. I mean, I'd rather be growing than dying on the vine. I can tell you that, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to innovate. You have the resources to do so. So it's been a good career.
And you talk about growth. Let me ask you this, Clay. How does Mount Pleasant Waterworks deal with growth with smart growth?
Well, obviously, you have to plan ahead in developing the infrastructure so that when the growth occurs, you're ready for it. You don't want to be behind the curve in infrastructure. I mean, when a house is built and we install a water meter, when they turn on that faucet, they want water to come out. And so you got to be ready. So when people occupy businesses and homes, the planning and zoning of the town of Mount Pleasant is more responsible for smart growth than Mount Pleasant Waterworks. They set the density of property, what you can do with your property, the development of that property, how big it can be, how small it can be, whatever. We just have to be ready to provide water and sewer. And so the one thing we do is that we have impact fees so that those new customers coming onto the system are the ones paying for the infrastructure that we had to put in place for them to have that service whenever they needed it.
And I know in the budget, obviously impact fees were obviously talk, in that particular issue. What will the impact fees look like for 2022?
They're about they're roughly $8,000 for water and sewer. We index our impact fees so we increase them slightly every year. I will say because of COVID, we pumped the brakes on that increase, and we have had no increase in our wastewater and wastewater charges. Our impact fees have stayed the same because, nobody knew what the financial situation was going to be with COVID, and so we didn't want to add any extra burden to our customers. So we just held the line on all of our fees and charges.
And I know earlier you talked in that quote about obviously development of a successful South Carolina state water plan. How close are you to that particular development?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm highly disappointed in the development of the state water plan. We need about $10 million to complete the plan. There are 8 watersheds in South Carolina, and we're only working on one of those 8 right now. We got about $1.3 million from the state legislature to do the Edisto River Basin, and we've been working diligently in developing the Edisto River Basin plan. But you have to do a river basin plan for all 8 and then put that together. At the rate we're going, it could be 10 years before we finish. And we really need to get the funding from the General Assembly so we can get working on the other 7 river basins and complete this plan. The last plan, the state water plan, was dated 2004. Wow. So it's been sitting there for 16 years, and it really needs updating because we have to be ready for the future. I mean, there's not another drop of water going to be created by the good Lord. It's just we got to deal with what we got. And the best way to do that is to be sure you've got a plan in place, that you don't overuse the resources, that you're constantly looking forward. The state water plan is supposed to have a timeline of 50 years. And so we try to look out and project the water demand in South Carolina for 50 years and then have a good plan developed by the local. This is a key thing to the plan. It's developed by the local stakeholders in each of the river basins, which is a great way to do it. It's a ground up type of plan development so that everybody takes in all the different interests, whether it be agriculture, water supply, recreation, whatever, economic development. You have to look at all of those various aspects of how you plan to use water and be sure that you got adequate water resources in the future and don't overuse those resources so it actually damages the environment.
And how much money would you ask for from the legislator right now?
$10 million.
Okay. And those 8 particular sites that you mentioned, what exactly do they need now?
Well, right now, the one river basin in Edisto is $1.3 million right now. They have funded that, and we have consultants working on it. They meet the River Basin Council is about 25 local people, and they meet every month, talking about the plan, learning about what's needed. I was on a committee that developed the framework for the plan. We worked 18 months developing the framework. So it's basically the how-to guide on developing a river basin plan. And so that's been done, and that's a good thing. We got that done by about 25 volunteers that we met monthly for 18 months developing that plan. So we've got a guidebook on how to do a plan. We just need to get to the business of developing the plan itself.
And this might be a silly question, Clay, but what exactly is water demand right now?
Oh, my Lord. It varies from different parts of the state. But you can figure that there's about 4 feet of water, rainfall falls in South Carolina every year. So that's billions and billions and billions of gallons. But obviously, what the water plan really is designed to do is to determine how do you allocate water across all the users and provide permits for them to use that water, and to be sure that when it's dry, when you're in a drought, that you don't run out of water, that everybody has adequate water to grow crops, to provide homes and businesses with clean drinking water. So it's really important that we have a good plan, and that we protect that water and make sure that it's available not only now, but in the future.
Yes, sir.
With climate change, I got to tell you,
yes,
there are a lot of issues with climate change, as you can imagine. But what we're seeing with the weather, and it's no secret that there's the storms that we're seeing are much more intense. The droughts that we're seeing, we had a flash drought in 2019 that broke all kind of records in terms of the lack of precipitation in 2019. The spring of 2019 broke all kind of records. Had the hottest months and hottest summer on record. And in that hot weather, it extended on into the fall. And we saw water demand on our system like you've never seen before. We broke all kind of records in water, how much water we had to supply. It was mainly irrigation, but people don't want to die. And sorry about that. That's my chairman. I had it.
Was that Rick Crosby?
That's Rick Crosby, yeah.
Good man.
Yeah, that's his ringtone,
Okay. And let me ask you this too, Clay. What project that you have completed over the past 31 years that describes you as a general manager?
Whoa. It's hard to say. When I first came to Mount Pleasant Waterworks, we actually built the first reverse osmosis plants in South Carolina that was used for public water. We've innovated with some of the technology called aquifer storage and recovery. The wastewater treatment that we provide do an outstanding job of cleaning the water. We've been recognized for a lot of different things, but I'd say probably the probably the thing I'm most proud of is how we've built a good team at Mount Pleasant Water. You can build pumps and plants and pipes and all that. That's what we do. But I think the thing I'd be most proud of is building the team and the quality of people that work at Mount Pleasant Waterworks. They're an outstanding group. They do a really good job of making me look good, which is the first thing you want employees to do. I'm teasing. No, they do a great job of customer service, and so I would say that's the thing I'm most proud of. They're so innovative, hardworking, dedicated folks. I mean, think about this for a minute. With all of COVID, did your water stop flowing? Did your toilet quit working? Throughout COVID, we have been doing our job, and nobody's really, the healthcare workers and all those folks have been doing a wonderful job too. But if you didn't have water and sewer, you couldn't have a clean, safe community. And so our workers are essential, and they haven't missed a beat through COVID. We've had about 10% of our workforce get COVID. Most of it was from family members, but our folks do a wonderful, wonderful job of making sure that the water flows every day and that the toilets flush and all that says goes away. So
Goes away. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, legendary Clay Duffie, thank you for your time and welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups. And thank you for all of your public service to Mount Pleasant and the state of South Carolina.
Well, as I always say in the wastewater business, Quintin, we say, when you flush, think of us.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And we're going to think about you and your great legacy.
Well, I appreciate it. And thank you so much, Quintin. Have a great day.
You too. Welcome anytime.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.